Towhid, his wife, their children, and his elderly mother were known in their Texas community as a picture-perfect immigrant family. But behind their smiling faces and quiet suburban life, a darkness was growing that no one could see. What looked like success and stability on the outside was, in truth, a fragile mask hiding deep struggles. Within just one night, that mask would shatter, leaving behind one of the most horrifying family massacres in recent American history. In a quiet corner of Allen, Texas, the Towhid family lived in a two-story home that blended in with the rest of the neighborhood. To anyone passing by, they were the picture of stability. The father worked hard, the mother devoted herself to the home, and the children were bright, ambitious, and respectful. The grandmother, who had joined them from India, brought with her the warmth of tradition, telling stories in the evenings and cooking meals that reminded everyone of their roots. To the outside world, they were the kind of family that neighbors admired. They attended community gatherings, greeted everyone with a smile, and seemed untouched by the troubles that often strained other households. But perfection is often only skin-deep. Behind the neatly trimmed lawn and carefully closed curtains, quiet struggles brewed. The father's job demanded long hours, and the pressure of maintaining financial security weighed heavily on him. The mother carried the invisible burden of keeping peace within the house, even as her own worries remained unspoken. The children, growing up between two cultures, felt the tug of expectation on one side and the pull of independence on the other. Their lives appeared seamless, but under the surface were the familiar cracks of a family balancing too much at once. The grandmother, though a comforting presence, often reminded the younger ones of their duty to succeed, to uphold family honor, and to carry forward the values of their heritage. While these words came from love, they added another layer of pressure. No arguments erupted that the neighbors could hear, no obvious signs of dysfunction leaked outside, yet something in the air inside that house grew heavier with each passing month. What seemed like a peaceful family was quietly walking toward a storm no one could see coming. The eldest son carried the weight of dreams that were not entirely his own. From an early age, he was praised for his intelligence, reminded constantly that he was meant to achieve great things. Those words, spoken with love, slowly turned into chains. Every grade, every decision, every step in his life felt like it had to be perfect, because anything less would be seen as failure. Outwardly, he appeared calm and obedient, but inside, he battled thoughts that grew darker with time. He began withdrawing from friends, no longer laughing at the same jokes, no longer showing the same spark that once made him stand out. His silence became a language that no one else understood. At home, the tension was subtle but constant. His father's authority created an atmosphere of order that left little room for mistakes. His mother, though caring, was stretched thin between managing the household and trying to ease the quiet conflicts that lingered in the air. The siblings sensed the unease but had no words for it, and the grandmother, with her strict values, unknowingly added to the invisible weight pressing down on him. He felt surrounded by expectations but cut off from relief. As weeks turned into months, the pressure carved away at his sense of self. He could not find joy in the achievements that once brought pride. Sleep became restless, thoughts became heavier, and the silence in his room grew longer each night. No one outside the family suspected anything unusual. To neighbors, he was just a reserved young man. To teachers, a student who occasionally slipped but always managed to recover. Yet, within him, despair had already taken root, quietly twisting itself into something dangerous and irreversible. The shift from silent suffering to sinister planning did not happen overnight. It began slowly, in the privacy of a closed bedroom where the eldest son spent more and more time. His laptop screen glowed long into the night, filled with searches that hinted at a growing obsession. He read about family annihilations, studied reports of murder-suicides, and watched videos that detailed the aftermath of such crimes. What started as morbid curiosity gradually hardened into a dangerous fixation. Each article, each case, seemed to confirm his darkest belief, that escape from his torment could only come through destruction. He began writing notes, scribbling down thoughts that revealed a chilling logic. In his mind, his family was trapped in a cycle of pressure and disappointment, just as he was. He convinced himself that sparing them from the pain of life was an act of mercy. This twisted reasoning gave him a sense of purpose, one that replaced the emptiness he had carried for so long. The plan, once just an idea, started to take shape in careful detail. In secret, he purchased a gun. The process was disturbingly simple, and the weapon became a grim comfort, hidden away but never far from his mind. He studied its weight, rehearsed its use, and began to see it as the key to ending everything. At the same time, his behavior at home shifted in small but noticeable ways. He ate less at family dinners, rarely engaged in conversation, and avoided eye contact. Yet the family, accustomed to his quietness, brushed it off as nothing more than stress. No one suspected that the boy they had raised with love was quietly planning their end. To the outside world, he was still the same quiet son. But inside, the countdown had already begun. The night of the massacre arrived without warning. The neighborhood was calm, the streets outside silent under the dim glow of streetlights. Inside the Towhid home, the family had settled into their routines, unaware that their final hours were unfolding. The eldest son had been preparing for this moment, rehearsing it in his mind over and over until it felt inevitable. To him, the house had become a cage, and the only way to free himself, and them, was through violence. When the clock struck past midnight, he moved quietly through the darkened hallway. In his hands was the weapon he had hidden for weeks, its cold weight steadying his resolve. He began with his parents, the figures who had built their lives around him, never imagining their son would turn against them. The shots were quick, deliberate, and there was no time for resistance. Each step he took carried him deeper into a silence that grew heavier with every pull of the trigger. His younger sister was next, asleep in her room, unaware of the horror creeping toward her. Then the grandmother, who had once told stories of safety and tradition, became another victim of his twisted mercy. One by one, he erased the lives that had surrounded him since birth, convinced he was sparing them from the suffering he believed was unavoidable. The walls of the house absorbed the violence, the rooms filled with a stillness more chilling than any scream. When it was done, the house stood quiet again, but it was no longer a home. He walked through the aftermath of his actions, blood marking the end of everything familiar. With no hesitation left, he turned the gun on himself. By morning, the entire Towhid family lay dead, their lives extinguished in the span of a single night. The following morning, concern began to ripple through the extended family when repeated calls went unanswered. The Towhids were known to stay in touch, and silence was unusual. By midday, a relative contacted the police, requesting a welfare check. When officers arrived, the house appeared normal from the outside, curtains drawn, driveway clear, no obvious sign of disturbance. But the front door was locked tight, and the stillness around it felt unsettling. After several attempts to make contact, the decision was made to enter. What they discovered inside would haunt them forever. The scene was one of unspeakable horror. In separate rooms lay the lifeless bodies of 6 family members. Each had been shot, and the evidence pointed to a deliberate, methodical act. The youngest was found in bed, still wrapped in a blanket. The grandmother, who had traveled across the world to be with her loved ones, was gone as well. The parents lay side by side, their lives ended in the very home they had worked so hard to build. Nearby was the body of the eldest son, the weapon still close to him, making the truth clear: it was a murder-suicide. Detectives searched the house and quickly uncovered disturbing details. Handwritten notes and digital files revealed the son's mental state, his obsession with violent cases, and his conviction that ending his family's lives was the only solution. The writings were cold and logical, lacking remorse, yet they carried fragments of despair. He had mapped out every step, ensuring no one could survive. For investigators hardened by years of grim discoveries, this case was especially haunting. The sheer scale of loss, combined with the calculated planning behind it, left them shaken. What was once a warm family home had turned into a crime scene that defied explanation. News of the massacre spread quickly, first through the local community and then across the nation. For many, it was impossible to comprehend how a family so admired could be destroyed overnight by one of their own. The Towhid home, once filled with laughter, became a site of mourning. Neighbors left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes along the sidewalk. Vigils were organized, where friends and strangers alike gathered in stunned silence. their faces lit by flickering candlelight as prayers were whispered into the night. Within the Indian community, the tragedy struck a deeper chord. Families saw reflections of their own struggles in the Towhids, the weight of expectations, the silent battles with mental health, and the difficulty of bridging cultural values with American life. Conversations that were often avoided began to emerge. Parents asked how much pressure was too much. Young people wondered whether their pain might one day push them beyond the edge. It became a story that was not only about one family, but about the silent suffering hidden in many households. Experts in psychology and criminology analyzed the case in interviews, pointing to untreated depression and isolation as possible roots of the crime. Some argued that cultural stigma around seeking help only deepened the son's despair, while others emphasized the danger of ignoring warning signs. Yet, even with analysis, the true answer remained elusive. No explanation could fully account for the brutality of a young man wiping out his entire family. In the end, the Towhid family massacre stood as a chilling reminder that appearances can deceive. A perfect home can conceal unbearable pain, and silence can sometimes be the loudest warning. Though their lives ended in tragedy, their story forced countless others to confront the hidden shadows within their own families.